So, from a let's speak about it a little bit from a different perspective. So if we speak about spiritual evolution or expansion of consciousness, you can say that the preliminary or the groundwork is to expand the consciousness in time. You see, so for most of us, we are concerned about this life. You know, we are quite smart, or we try to be smart with, making oneself a good life until we die. So we put money aside, or we aim to get some kind of retirement fund or something to take care of this life. So most ordinary people do that. It's a worldly aim to one strive to get some kind of security and some kind of well-being within this life. But curiously, one stopped thinking about what's going to happen after we leave this body. So for non-spiritual people, the answer is either, oh, I die and it's finished. And I'm finished. I cease to exist. So if one is a Western scientific bent, say, oh, mind is a product of the brain, then when the brain ceases, I cease to exist. Or one thinks just, I don't know, nobody knows, and we'll see when it happens. There might be something or there might be nothing. Why worry about it now? Just live the life as fully as I can. So spiritually, one tries to intuit that consciousness goes on. So by doing this type of meditation or studying about it, reading the biography on enlightened master and so on, so we try to break this barrier that it's gonna cease when I die. It's very important. So for example, those which become Lamrimpa, meditator of Lamrim. So every day, when you think about precious human rebirth, you think about infinite lives. So you see your life just one in the middle of many, many lives. So you break this barrier of time. I'm born and going to die, and my whole existence is within these two limits in time. So you break that barrier first in front. I'm going to die. But consciousness goes to this more subtle level, and then intermediate state, and then another life, and like that. So when you repeat this process many times, you don't just imagine dying once and being in the bardo and next life. No, then you imagine your next life, what might happen or what you imagine could happen, and that also is gonna end, and again clear light of another life. So you imagine 10 lives, 100 lives, 1,000 lives, 1,000,000 lives, endless lives. And what that does imply, and this life is one. Before that we had 1, we had 10, we had 100, we had 1,000,000. So this life is just one in a stream of many lives. So this meditation is very important and very profound. It completely changes your perspective on life. You see, this life, how to say, if you have only one life, if you only this life, everything becomes so important, so dramatic. It's your only chance. You know, for example, if you're a Christian, you know, your whole eternity is based on the action you do in this life. You know, you have only this life to prepare eternity. Whereas in Buddhist context, you have infinite lives before and infinite lives after. So this life becomes quite relative. You know, it's not that important from that perspective. Yeah, it's just one. You know, I have another chance next life, another, you know. You know, if this time my relationship with my partner doesn't work out, maybe next life, you know, my relationship would be better. If my kids didn't turn out good in this life, maybe next life they turn out better. You know. And maybe we pollute this planet, we dissolve this planet, maybe another planet will be better. You know. So we have infinite chance to make it right, isn't it? From one perspective, what we do is not that important. You know, because even if we die, we continue. No? But then, so you see, within this context of infinite, so something change. Your life doesn't become that important. You see, for example, I had a friend at the monastery, Nalanda, and he had difficulty studies, he had difficulty meditating. So he was wondering what's good for him to stay monk, you know. He wasn't a person that understands the text very easily, and he wasn't a meditator. So what's the purpose of my life as monk, you know? I might, you know, go back to a lay life and at least, you know, help little bit people around me. And he went to see Geshe Tekchok. He was abbot at that time, and he said, you know, oh look, you know, I have doubt staying monk, you know, no benefit, you know. And Geshe Tekchok, you shouldn't look it from that perspective. He said, you know, you have infinite lives, and each life you add a drop of water in the bucket. So the bucket doesn't overflow with the first drop, neither with the last drop. It overflows with all this accumulation of drop, right? So each life you make your effort, you know, you try to improve your mind, you try to become a better person. And all this accumulation in one life, everything clicks and you make it. You know, but you make it in that life, like let's say Milarepa, he made it in that life, but we don't see all the past lives that were this little drop that led to this last life where he made it, right? So that's our spiritual, you know, effort, is drop after drop, lifetime after lifetime, you know. So we do as good as we can, you know, but all this effort we do is never lost. You see, it stays in our mind, and life after lifetime, the conditions become better, our mind becomes better, we have less obstacle, things happen easier, and one day everything clicks and we make it. So you see, it's not all or nothing. So in this life, you know, we make our steps and we try our best, and we don't know how far we're going to go, because it depends on many cause and condition, inner factor, outer environmental factor. But as long as we are on the path, you know, as long as we make our best, we don't know since how many lives we already try. And then with whatever quality of mind we die, you see, with the same quality of mind we take rebirth. So we know some children have naturally a good heart, are kind, and care for and other children are very selfish, very self-absorbed. So it shows, kind of different past imprint, different habit. And some children are very smart, very, very sharp-minded, and others are quite dull. So this shows, it doesn't just come from the parents. It comes also from the child's own past life. And then the type of parents the child has also is conditioned by his own past life. He chooses these parents either willingly or unwillingly due to some kind of connection with those parents. So even the genetic makeup of the parents, or the level of wealth or intelligence of the parents, all that is also the karma of that child. He's attracted to this kind of parents. So the driving force, you see, what we face in a life is not due to chance or doesn't happen at random. And it's neither created by a God or a creator that make you do those experiences for you to learn a lesson. The driving force of our experience is karma, our own cause and effect. We create a certain cause with our mind, then a certain effect happens to our mind. So there's certain positive actions we do that leaves a positive imprint that brings about a positive, a happy result. And whatever negative deeds, negative thought, harmful behavior leaves an imprint on the mind that brings about harmful circumstance to oneself. That's karma. Cause and effect. So in a sense we have infinite time to make it, but each action, each thought, everything we do leaves an imprint on our mind that we have to experience as the result, as happiness or pain, as propensities, as as skill. So it's not completely lost. So, and then, for example, in our modern life, there's so much things we can do. We can become a scientist in so many different domains, or there's all these interesting sport that one can master, or literature one can read, or art that one can explore, or travel. We can travel up the mountain, down in the ocean, on a cruise, in a submarine, jumping for airplanes. So, so much one can do. And if you're curious, each one of these activities are interesting. There's so much interesting things out there. Fun. No? But life is so short. So what is really meaningful, you see, spiritually? And each of these lives we have, each life, again, there's so many interesting things to do. And that's what we have been doing since beginningless time. Each life we have explored what was to be done in that space and time we were. The only thing we haven't explored is to understand who we really are. We have taken for granted that we are, that we exist in the way we thought. And that's why we're still caught in cause and effect and mental afflictions and this level of unsatisfaction. So to live a spiritual life, if you don't break this barrier of time, is very difficult. If you only think about this life, there's so much other thing you can do. Why spirituality more than something else? And then for those which have made effort for a number of years and they don't see much result, again, why would you continue? So if there's only this life, you say, okay, I'm not made up for spirituality, you know. It's not for me, I don't get any results, so let's do something else. But if you break this barrier of time, then you see what you haven't accomplished this life, you finish next life. You see, you have infinite time in front of you. So your effort is never lost. So this is very important meditation, you know. So every morning, if you want to put your life in real perspective, you have to break the barrier of time, to see it from a much broader perspective. Then your activity of this life makes sense. You see? Then, yes, so I have to support myself. I live in this body. You know, I need a certain level of comfort, you know. I have a partner, I have a child, or I don't. You see, you have your life. So there are certain things you do for this life because you need to support yourself, or your family, or whatever it is. But that's not the whole picture. If you have this barrier of time broken, you have to take care of what's happening after, and after, and after. And then, not only you have this infinite time in front of you, but basically you don't know how many years you have before making the jump. You know, before this life finishes. It's not like it says in certain planets everybody lives 1,000 years. You know, there's no accident, there's no sickness. Everyone has the karma to live 1,000 years. So in certain continents, certain planets, it's like that. But not on Earth. So that we spend a certain amount of time taking care of the affairs of this life is good, you know. But one has to see the bigger picture. Because then you can live a life that is in harmony with future lives. You see, then even though you enjoy your partner, your children, your activities, but because you see the bigger picture, at least you can create good karma, good actions, and create the cause for good result, for happiness, not only in this life, but in the future life. So at Kopan Monastery at the time of Lama Geshe, the first meditation we would do is these things, meditating on infinite lives. That was the first meditation. We would meditate that mind is not the body, and mind has to have as its cause a mind or something immaterial, a previous moment of awareness, and then we would meditate on this stream of consciousness that is beginningless and endless. So at a certain level, at the beginning, you need to have certain faith, because it's not your experience. You don't know, So you have doubt. So you have different type of doubt, right? So you have the doubt that tends towards, no, it's not like that. And then you have the doubt, oh, maybe, I don't know. And then you have the doubt, oh, maybe yes, And then you have some valid reasoning that you can come to a conclusion, yet it's like that because of this and that reason. And then later on, due to your own spiritual experience, you can see it is like that. You can experience consciousness as something that is not the body, and you can see if you have calm abiding, single point of concentration on consciousness, you can see your past life and you can intuit your future life. So it's something that you can experience. Maybe not right now, but something that anybody can experience if he develops his spiritual qualities. And beings like many of our teachers, they are at the level where they can see these things, like His Holiness Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So for them it's not, they don't have doubt about it, they can see. And it's not just because they are special people. Every one of us has the potential to see these things. Everyone that makes the effort can get there. You see, if you understand continuity of consciousness, past and future life, how it works under the control of cause and effect, and mental affliction and mistaken perception of reality, you understand how cyclic existence function. And you understand that there's no satisfaction in it, because whatever is born has to die. Whatever starts has to end. Whatever is an effect has a cause. So it's impermanent. It's an energy that lasts a certain amount of time and ends. So all our living experience has this frustration at its very core. So whatever you build will never last. Your relationship will not last. Your house will not last. Your job will not last. Your money will not last. This planet will not last. This government will not last. This country will not last. Whatever is born abide a certain amount of time and then disappears. It's built in the very structure of its existence. So when you meditate very deeply on that, there's no place in samsara where you will be happy. because you're under the control of cause and effect. You're not free. So it's only by going beyond time, beyond cause and effect, that you're free, that you can experience satisfaction, lasting satisfaction. Then if cause and effect, and the world, the self, had some inherent existence, there will be no choice. We will be trapped forever. But nothing of these things, if you inquire with your mind, find any essence. You see, the body doesn't have ultimate reality, this planet doesn't have, the mind doesn't have, the eye doesn't have, nothing has ultimate reality. Therefore you can transcend it. So it's only by seeing the emptiness of inherent existence of everything that you can become free of time, free of cause and effect, free of this hallucination of everything being solid. So for it to become more than just an intellectual play, you have to see it in meditation, how there's nowhere in cyclic existence that you will be happy. As long as you're trapped by cause and effect, mistaken perception of reality of the self and other, you're stuck. So like Lama Tsongkhapa says in Lines of Experience, as long as we don't realize that cyclic existence is the nature of suffering, the wish to be free of them will not arise. And as long as you don't understand the cause of cyclic existence, you don't hold in your hand the means to become free of it. So we have really, not just take it as an intellectual game. We have to experientially try really to see how it works in our mind. Because it's something that one can experience. One can realize the unsatisfactory nature of cyclic existence. In meditation you can see it. And then you can also see that if you realize it of not being self-existent, that there is no self, no body, no mind, no other, no planet, that you can become free. You see, then you hold in your mind the key. Yeah, you're stuck there, but there's a solution, there's a way out. So the key then is, you try to see how everything is like self-existent. So you can use some reasoning, which we do tomorrow, or you can use the intuition. You see, oh, this is a dream. I have a dream body, dream mind, dream thought, dream I walk in a dream street. I drive a dream car. I live with a dream partner. I I have dream children, I have dream parent. It's a dream. And doing so loosens something in your mind. It's very interesting. You know, when I do this meditation, walking down, I have much less mental affliction, much less thought. You know, it's just a dream, and my mind is at peace. If I see solid me, solid others, solid street, solid car, then why are there so many cars? Why am I not the lonely one? You know, and the whole things come, right? It's solid, it's concrete president, concrete global warming. You know, concrete, so many things to worry about. You know, but if I see it as dream-like, as senseless, then my mind is at peace. It doesn't matter so much. You know? So the more I see it as dreamlike, as senseless, the more I have peace in my mind. And the more I see it concrete, solid, you know, there's a concrete new cell phone that come, a smartphone, you know. It's concrete, it's solid, you know. Like Apple is very good with advertisement, you know. You know, it's almost like an icon, you know, kind of very, you know. They're very good. And then, of course, you want it, you know. You know, kind of like that, you know. And there's so many things in the world you don't want, you know, it's concrete problem, concrete this, you know. But because it's concrete, it creates this wanting and this not wanting, this attraction, aversion, right? Because it's solid, it exists, right? But if you see it as transparent, as senseless, so the more you see it transparent as senseless, you know, the less you want it, the less you have fear, the less you have attraction. So the more you have peace of mind. So you can see the effect on yourself. So even though we haven't realized emptiness yet directly, but we can see by this little example, if I train my mind in that direction, I have less worry, less fear, less obsession, and my mind has more peace. Right? So from Buddhist perspective, a happy mind, you see, a happy, blissful mind is one where there is absence of attachment, absence of aversion, absence of fear, absence of longing, absence of pride, absence of jealousy. You see, enlightenment or happiness is not something you build, it's something you let go. So you let go, you see, it's almost like the mind is innately pure, is innately enlightened, but there are these veil, right? This obscuration. So it's by reducing your anger, reducing your obsession, your desire, your fear. So the more you reduce this mental affliction, the more peace and happiness you enjoy. So enlightenment or happiness is not found by going somewhere or doing something, is by letting go of certain states of mind, you know, and then naturally you have peace, you have joy. It's your innate nature. So we hear that, you know, in teachings again and again, but somehow, you see, we have the wisdom that comes from hearing, you know, but then you have to get the wisdom that comes from reflecting or meditating on it. You see, so meditation usually is described as familiarizing the mind with something. And this familiarization comes from a repeated practice. Doing it again and again and again. And for you to be able to do this repeating again and again so that it doesn't become stale, you have to get some blessing. You see? You have to clean the mind, create positive actions, and receive blessing. The blessing comes from your own inner clear mind. From your own clear light mind. That's where the blessing comes from. So, and then the accumulation of positive deeds, the purification of the mind, that allows you inner wisdom, your inner clarity, to bless you. And then your meditation becomes imbued with certain juice, certain life, instead of being dry intellect meditation. It becomes alive. Your mind, instead of experiencing a thought, the thought becomes alive. You experience the thought, or you leave the thought that you're thinking about. So that's why in the Lamrim, you go through some graduate stages. So first you go through the stage intellectually to get a picture of the whole path, the whole structures. But then you have to start again from the beginning, and this time you want to experience it. It's not just mere words, mere concept, mere idea. But we in the West, because of our education system, we often think if I understand something intellectually, I know it. But here in the spiritual context, that's not enough. You must be able to live it, to experience it. So that's why you clean the mind, you accumulate mind, and you repeat the meditation again and again till you can live it. So when you see this process of infinite life with its unsatisfactory nature, how you're bound by cause and effect, then suddenly you realize, I have been doing that since infinite time, and in this life I have this conjunction. For myself I have spiritual interest, and from outside I have met teachers, I have met the spiritual tradition, I have met, circumstances that can lead me to this experience, and that's infinitely rare. Will this conjunction of situation happen again in next life? There's no guarantee. We hope, but we don't know. So in the teaching usually it says there's more chance than not that it's not gonna happen. So they say having a precious human life where one has spiritual interest. You see, among all the infinite things you could do in your life, as I said before, sport, art, profession, family, travel, all these infinite possibilities, you have some spiritual interest. You have connected with the path to enlightenment. What you see, next life you have again all these possibilities as children, all these options as things you want to study and do. What chance are that you from yourself again spiritual interest, and that around you have a situation where you meet again spiritual people or spiritual path, and then even you meet spiritual people or spiritual path, there might be wrong ones, some kind of sect, So, you see, in this life we have somehow got it, So, and they say it's like one life in a million. A situation like that will not happen again in a million life. If I don't take the essence of it now, if I don't reach a certain level of spiritual evolution now, where then I can control my rebirth, I can control where I go, who I meet, where I can put myself again in a positive situation next life. If I don't reach the level of evolution where I can have that control, then I'm bound by karma, mental affliction. I might be born in a place where none of this is available. So you see, you get there gradually and then you realize, wow, this is really precious. That's what we mean by a precious human life. And then that precious opportunity is very short. We have a few more years to live, and even that is not guaranteed. We can, have a car accident on the way home. It happens to others. So it can happen to us too. So that, you see, then that's the realization of impermanence and death, you see. So it makes your life much more precious and your spiritual undertaking, more serious. Otherwise, it just becomes kind of an intellectual, challenging game, It's like playing spiritual chess, moving piece, understanding, kind of like that. But it's much more, how to say, having a realization is much more something that you experience from your gut, very deep inside. Then it has huge power of transformation, the way it affects your life. So this expansion on time, the understanding of time in your spiritual life is the first, direction where you expand your mind. So we are very fortunate if we can do that, because many people, they cannot do that due to some kind of mental blockage, or everything ends with death. Or for example, other people, even they can spiritually say, oh, nobody came back, nobody came back. So maybe there's nothing after death, nobody came back. Nobody came back to tell us, If there would be something, for example, my dad used to tell me, they made a bet with some friends, in a bar drinking red wine, So they made a bet, if there's life after death, whoever dies first comes to tell to the other, So my dad, his reasoning for many years, my friend died and he didn't come back to tell me there's something. If there would be something, he would have come back and show me. But he hasn't. And that was his argument, So people, when you discuss with people around you in your life, what's happening after death, you hear all these kind of reasonings, many, many different reasonings, thoughts, and they believe it as true, So if one can break that concept of time, we're so fortunate. And then we have to explore it, what it implies. Then you can understand the whole cyclic existence. And then that leads you to exploring how to get free of it by realizing emptiness. You know? So that then is the second direction where your mind expands. Your mind expands into depthness. You know, you see things how they deeply exist, not just superficially. You see how the body exists, the mind, the eye, outer phenomena, how everything exists deeply. And deeply, you don't find anything. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. It means they exist differently, as mere imputation by the mind. I'll come to that back tomorrow. You see, when I look at an object, it's me here and the object there. You know, there's me here and you there. And we are completely independent. You there, I'm here. And there's a space in between. You know? We are completely independent. There's nothing that comes from my mind when I see you. There's nothing from my mind that comes when I see the cup. The cup is there, I'm here. And I look at the cup there. There's nothing for me that has to do with the cup. Right? Yes, there's something that comes from me that we agree, you know. Or some people like the cup and some people don't like it. You know, it's the same cup, but we have a different perception of it, right? You know, so there's something that comes from the mind. You know, liking, disliking, you know, something like that. And that's about it. But in reality, if there's no seer, there's no cup. There's no cup that exists independent from our mind. There's no cup there. You know, the cup is created by my mind. My perception of you is created by my mind. You don't exist independently from my mind. You know, my perception of you depends on my mind. You know, there's nothing there from your own side. There's nothing there from the cup side. See? Is the mind that creates the cup. Is my mind that creates my perception of you. There's nothing there. You know? So that's what means is merely everything is merely labeled by the mind. There's nothing there. So it's really interesting when you go there, you know, when you try to experience that. You know, things are merely labeled by the mind. They are not there. They don't exist from the side of the object. They exist from the side of the subject, from the side of the mind. So they exist, but they exist from the side of the mind. Whereas we think everything exists out there, independent from the mind. So that's what you inquire in when you look for the deep mode of existence. You realize that nothing exists independent from your mind. Everything is merely labeled by your mind. They don't exist independently from your mind. So that again, first we have some kind of conceptual understanding, and then we try to chew over it again and again, and that leads to a direct experience of it. You see that it is actually like that. So you have two approaches. One approach that says, oh, if it exists inherently, if it exists from its own side, I should be able to find it. But then when you inquire, you don't find as the inherent existent, that self-existent, or that existent from the side of the object. If you inquire, you find it's made out of part that are made out of part that are made out of part infinitum. There's nothing there as it appears. Yet it exists. So how come? You see how it's a construct of your mind. And that construct of your mind can still exist in dependence on part and cause and condition. So that's true for the cup, that's true of my perception of you, that's true of my perception of my body, my mind, of my eye. Nothing exists from his own side. Everything is merely imputed by mind, even the mind itself. So that's the second direction where your mind expands. And then the third direction where your mind expands, that's what we're going to explore now. I call it expansion in space, but it's not exactly space. It's a special type of space. The space of all living being. Right? So I think in the ancient time our space of living being was more limited. You see, if I would live, for example, as a kid, I used to go in my grandparents' village. So their perception of other people, were the people in their village, and they would rarely travel to the next village because they were by horses and cart, or they had to walk. So their worldview, the expansion of space was limited to the few people around them, the few villages around them, and the big city they would go once in a lifetime there, So it was very their worldview of other beings was very limited. And at the beginning they didn't have even a radio. Then my grandfather, I think when he grew up, so there was radio, and then so they would spend an hour every evening listening to the news, in front of the radio. So the view of the world came through the radio, what other people, other countries do, kind of like that. But we in this modern age, due to internet and things like that, we almost have a global view of the planet, Most of us know what's happening in China, a little bit in Russia, in Africa, South America. So it's almost like the planet has become a global village. So I think our mental perception of other living beings is much bigger than at the time of my grandparents, where kind of like that. So naturally we have this kind of expansion. How to say, in our psychic, when you think of other living being, you don't just think about your relatives or the people in your village. You have a much bigger image of living being, right? So the first meditation here goes, there's infinite number of living beings, and they're all like me, wanting to be happy and not suffering. So this again is a state of mind where you think of, oh, look, I want to be from the moment I'm born till I die, every morning I wake up, I just want to be happy and not have any problems. And that's completely right, it's my right. You know, that's my basic human right. And that's exactly the same for the person at my right, the person at my left. Each and every living being. So His Holiness describes a sentient being or a living being, someone that can experience suffering and can experience happiness. So what delimits something to be a sentient being is somebody that can experience happiness and can experience pain. So any sentient being would rather experience happiness than pain. So we are all alike. No? So these, you see, now what happens in our mind is we are so busy that most of the time we think about the happiness and the suffering of one person, me. You know? Then we think, how to say, out of 24 hours, maybe 23 hours we think about me, my happiness. And then maybe half hour we think about the happiness of my partner, my children. You know? And then maybe 15 minutes about the happiness of my friends. You know? And maybe 10 minutes about the happiness of all living beings. You know? So that's the percentage, you know, more or less. Basically, the most important sentient being is me. You know? And my mental scope is thinking about me. You know? Yet there are infinite number of living beings that all, like me, want to be happy and not want to have pain. But because of my self-grasping and self-cherishing or self-centeredness, I'm mostly concerned about me, my partner, my family, my friend, and I'm not so much concerned about other living beings. Yeah, you know, as long as, you know, yes, I'm concerned a little bit about them because they affect me. So if they would be happy, I would be happier. You know, but basically I'm mostly concerned about me. So Shantideva says this is just out of habit. You see, due to habit I'm attached to this body that is the fruit, that's actually not mine, is a result of the sperm and ovum of my parents. You know, so this body is not my own, you know, it's the produce of someone else. Yet, due to habit, familiarity, I have decided this body is mine, is me. You know, so I'm getting very attached and concerned about his or her happiness. But he says it's just habit. Training. One can as well transfer that to any other living being and being as concerned about the happiness of other beings that I'm concerned about the happiness of me. It's just mental training. So one meditation, you see, in this context, is that every day one thinks about all living beings like me. I want to be happy and not want suffering. So it's exactly the same for all other living beings. As I have the right to be happy, they also have the right to be happy. The person that works in the shops, in the supermarket, the person that drives in the car around me, my boss, my fellow employees, all like me want to be happy and have the same right as me to be happy. All the cats and dogs, they are sentient beings, they want to be happy, not spend. They have like me the same right to be happy. The cows, the sheep, the pigs, they're like me. The flies, the mosquitoes, the cockroaches, the ants, they're like me, they just want to be happy, and they have the same right of me to be happy. And all other living beings, wherever they are, in the 6 realms or beyond, all living beings are like me. They have the same wish and right to be happy than me. There's no difference at all. So again, one can understand it intellectually in the head, or you can feel it from the heart. You see, with your heart you touch the heart of all other living beings, and that they are sentient, they have feelings, they have sensation, and they would rather have happy sensation than unpleasant one. So we are all one in wishing to be happy. Now an ordinary person like us, you see, most of the time we think about me, my problem, my happiness, my interest. Now an enlightened person or a spiritually advanced person, he or she thinks about others. So we think 23 hours about me and 1 hour about others. An enlightened person thinks 1 hour about him and 23 hours about others. So it is a total reversal from being self-centered to be centered upon others. Or usually one uses the term, from being self-cherishing to cherishing other. So it's a space of mind. You see, it's an experience where we are so self-absorbed that we don't think much about other, or just little bit. We're so concerned about me, my family, my friend, my parents. Whereas an enlightened being, he thinks only about others. How he or she can make other people happy. So there's no concern about him or her. And the miracle in that thing is that we want to be happy and think 23 hours about me wanting to be happy. And even though we think 23 hours about it, we don't achieve it. And they think 23 hours about others, and they're totally happy. It's very strange, isn't it? Is that by cherishing other, one's own happiness, one's own joy is the result. And by being absorbed, concerned, selfish, self-centered, wanting to make this I happy, we never get it. So there's reasonings why, so you can meditate on the faults of self-centered attitude, how because of it we create negative karma and therefore experience negative result. And because of self-centeredness, the mental affliction of longing, desire, attachment, anger, pride, jealousy arise, and because of this negative emotion, we create negative deeds, and again problems arise. And hope and fear, right? And then the positive things of caring for others, being concerned about them. So whatever action we do out of love and compassion, concern for others, are positive deeds, and therefore the effect of that is happiness. It's wealth, it's good friends, good environment. Everything is a result of our positive deeds, positive karma, good rebirth, happy family, happy children. All this is the result of our good heart, of love and compassion. So even though we don't want to be, we are not concerned about one's own happiness, because of the virtuous state of mind of love, compassion and caring, due to this positive thought, positive speech, positive deed, then one's own happiness is the result in this life and future. So even though a bodhisattva is not concerned about his or her happiness, the result is just happiness. So this again, one has to look at it very deeply, repeatedly, to understand, and then gradually we can change our attitude from being self-centered to be caring for others. So an enlightened being, a Buddha, is one that is totally and only concerned for the happiness of all living beings. And it's not an effort, it's not a thought, it's a spontaneous state of mind. You see, he has trained his mind in that direction for so long that it's spontaneous. There's not a single thought about himself. There's only thought for all living beings and bringing them to happiness. Not only does it have no self-cherishing, but there is no self there at all. You see, there's no self to cherish in the first place. So that's how the third direction where the mind expands. You see, from being mostly concerned about me, my happiness, my family, my friend, my community, to gradually expand that, to include in your mind the welfare of each and every living being. It's a state of mind. It's a realization, it's an experience. It just expands. You see, when you think about me, myself and I, it's three persons. If you think all living being, how many is that? You see how that, you see from being self-centered, you centered about all living being, how your mind expands. And all these living beings, they have karma, they have cause and effect, they have different lifestyle, the different level of realization, different level of obscuration. So you're concerned about each and every one, and you want to improve their experience. You want to make them happy, and you want to bring them to the highest happiness possible of enlightenment. So it's a state of mind. It's an experience. So beings like the Dalai Lama, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, they live in that experience spontaneously. That's who they are. You see, they have brought that state of mind to perfection. And for us, it takes an effort even to think about it, let alone experience it. For them, it's spontaneous, effortless, without any thought. So if they can experience it, we can, through repeated practice, get there too. So you see, spiritual practice or spiritual evolution implies mostly, there's another dimension that I don't want to speak about, but there's this expansion in time, in profundity, emptiness, and in scope of mind. You see, expand your consciousness to include all living beings. So that's, you know, in a nutshell, what the Lamrim is to expand your consciousness in this different direction. First intellectually, then through experience. And then it becomes your natural state of being. That's who you are. You live in this infinite time. You live in this different level of profundity, the superficial and the space-like nature of things. And you live with your consciousness that cares for all living beings. Why you live? You know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche often says, you know, Westerners haven't found what's the purpose of life. You know, Western scientists, they don't know why we live. You know, they know all these things about life, but they haven't found the purpose of life, why living beings live. And Rinpoche said, oh, it's very easy. You know the answer? We live for all living beings, for the sake of all living beings. The purpose of my life is to make all living beings happy. That's the purpose of our life. You see, when you think about others, how to make other people, you worry about yourself, about your life, about your health, about your job, about your relationship. All this disappear. You know, so much of our problem and worry comes because I'm so much concerned about me. And if you let go of that, you think about how can I make other people happy? How can I serve other people? You know, how can I develop my mind for other people? Then suddenly all these worries and concern we have about ourselves, our problem, weakens, become smaller. So this text basically goes into that direction, you see, is how to bring about that state of mind and how to cultivate in everyday life. Okay, I think it's tea time, isn't it? For the benefit of all sentient beings.